There's still a lot of people in this country trying to figure out whose fault it is that we're in this quarantine lockdown pandemic. And if you turn on the media or listen to a Democrat, they're going to blame Donald Trump. Nancy Pelosi recently said that Trump's denial and delay on coronavirus is deadly. But sure enough, you'll see other people point the finger at Democrats and say the Democrats were ignoring this and they were distracted by impeachment. Mitch McConnell says that the impeachment distracted government from coronavirus threat. Now, there's some blame to go around, but let me just stop before I get into this and the partisan bickering and say China is to blame. Let's be real. They lied, they downplayed this, they withheld evidence, and it got really, really bad for everybody. But I will say, when we want to look at the response to everything that happened here in the United States, yes, we can criticize the president, and I think he is deserving of some criticism. It may be that his early downplaying was an attempt to prevent panic, or it could just be they thought the media was lying. But everybody downplayed this. The media downplayed this, except some Republicans did not. Many conservative outlets were calling this out. So if you want to actually talk about how this got bad, then the fault really does lie with some conservatives, but many Democrats. You see, this is a hilarious self-own for Nancy Pelosi, not so much Mitch McConnell, because McConnell is right. It's absolutely true that while this crisis was getting worse around the world, Donald Trump had already acted to create the coronavirus task force and to put some restrictions on on travel from China. And what were the Democrats doing? Impeachment. So the reason why this is a cell phone is, for one, because of that, but also Nancy Pelosi is blaming Trump, saying denial and delay on the coronavirus response when they weren't doing anything. Literally just trying to impeach the man and then blaming him for slowing things down. But here's the best part. Joe Biden, what was he tweeting about the day before Donald Trump formed his task force? Impeachment. The day after Donald Trump formed his task force, what was Joe Biden tweeting about? Impeachment. And for the next month or so, when people were debating coronavirus in the media and with Donald Trump, what was Joe Biden talking about? Climate change. And then when it actually came down to Donald Trump taking hard action, what did Joe Biden do? Call Donald Trump xenophobic and criticize the things he was doing to stop the coronavirus outbreak. If you want to blame Trump, you do it with my blessing. We don't know if someone else would have done a better job. Some people say, anyone would have done a better job. Others say, no, Trump is doing the best anyone could have done. But there's one thing we absolutely know for sure. Joe Biden would have done a substantially worse job. Donald Trump put restrictions on travel with China in January. And Joe Biden, like a month or two later, started criticizing travel restrictions. Restrictions that Dr. Fauci said perhaps saved us and really helped us stop the flow of coronavirus, although it is still getting bad. If Joe Biden was president, he would have dragged his feet even more because he doesn't want to be xenophobic, right? Look, I don't know exactly what Joe Biden would have done. But for Nancy Pelosi to come out and criticize Trump for dragging his feet on this when he took action before they did, and they were obsessed with impeachment, and even Joe Biden was not on board with this while Donald Trump was, by all means criticize the president, but they did a worse job. So we're going to get into the partisan bickering because I think it's fair to say, look, even when it comes to Pelosi, you can criticize the Democrats for dragging their feet, but Bill de Blasio does deserve a lot more of the blame here. And I'll throw some shade his way. But we're going to talk about the presidential election. And before we get started, I want to cap off this intro by just saying I have substantially more respect for Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden than I do for China. And as much as I'm going to be critical of them, I want to make sure you all realize that 95% of the blame on everything comes from China. And then the Democrats take a small percentage and Trump takes a smaller percentage. Let's just make that clear, because now we're going to get into the partisan bickering. But I want to make sure our focus is based in reality. We all know China lied, downplayed this, and that's why it got really, really bad. But if the Democrats want to play the game of calling out Donald Trump and blaming him for this, I'm going to show you some evidence. It's just not fair. Tom Cotton, a Republican, was calling for a travel ban on like January 28th, and he was raising warning flags about this for a long time. And he was criticized, and Facebook was taking down his posts. Yes, the Democrats ignored this. They focused on impeachment, and they deserve more blame for dragging their feet. Let me just say it one more time before we get started. If Pelosi wants to criticize Trump for dragging his feet, he was doing more than they did. From the Hill, Trump's delay on coronavirus response is deadly. Now, before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's many ways you can give, but the best thing you can do is share this video. Helps my channel grow. YouTube is not too kind to political commentary these days. They derank and demonetize. You know how it goes. But subscribe, hit the like button. It really, really does help. And hit the notification bell if you want to make sure you get all my videos when they come up every day at 4 p.m. Let's read what Nancy Pelosi had to say. Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Sunday, President Trump's delay and denial in responding to the coronavirus pandemic has had deadly consequences for Americans. His denial at the beginning was deadly. His delaying of getting equipment to where it needed is deadly. And now the best thing would be to do, is to prevent more loss of life rather than open things up so that because we just don't know, Pelosi said on CNN's State of the Union. Asked about her thoughts on the administration considering relaxing federal guidelines for less affected parts of the country, Pelosi said the U.S. should be taking every precaution. I don't know what the purpose of that is, she said, adding that she doesn't know what the scientists are telling Trump. Well, Donald Trump wanted to open things up by the 12th because you would have to be blind to ignore the economic consequences of what's going to happen if we shut everything down. People will lose their lives, businesses will be destroyed, and they will never come back, and people will suffer. We have to make sure, as Trump said, the cure is not worse than the disease. Dr. Fauci, everyone seems to love, said that April 12th is an aspirational goal and the president is trying to give people hope. Yes, that's the most honest interpretation. Trump really does want to get things open again. No, he doesn't want to just make corporate profits like the left would argue. I think he's genuinely like the economy tanking is really bad for everybody. And then Trump went and extended the lockdown until April 30th. We'll see what happens. I'm willing to bet it gets extended further. But Trump, in my opinion, is trying to give people a light at the end of the tunnel. In fact, I think he's been doing a pretty good job of things, and most people in this country agree. Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, Bill de Blasio, and Joe Biden have been doing a terrible job of things. Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats obstructed the stimulus bill for about a week, and they put in a bunch of bloat and some nonsense about, I'm not even going to get into it, okay? But let's just say they wanted a bunch of money stuffed into this bill, and so they held it up, and that's holding up the economy. Now, there's a bunch of garbage in this bill I'm not a fan of. A lot of people were angry that the bill got passed in the first place, be it Republican or Democrat provisions. But what you need to understand, we have to kickstart the economy because we're watching in other countries food shortages and food rioting. It's starting. We take this very seriously. People need to have money to buy food. Let's read a little bit more. As the president fiddles, people are dying. We just have to take every precaution, she added. The speaker also criticized Trump for his remarks last week at the signing of the stimulus bill. I'm not super concerned about that. Let's see what Mitch McConnell had to say because there's something else I want to point out. Nancy Pelosi wants essentially another investigation of Trump. You see, these people are obsessed. We have a serious global crisis. We had a crisis before the impeachment, or I'm sorry, during your impeachment, which wasted all of our time and distracted everybody. And now they're saying once we're done, we're going to do it again. You know what, man? Let me tell you guys something. I got a text message from someone campaigning for a Democrat. This dude seems like an all right guy. I don't want to say who it is necessarily. I don't want to, put out people's private information. But I get a bunch of these. They're like hot calls, I guess, or hot texts or whatever they're. People see my information. They send me a text saying, would you like to support this person? I'll tell you exactly what I said. You know what, man? I'm not a fan of some of these Republicans. Policy-wise, I lean a little to the left. But I'm not going anywhere near the Democratic Party at this point. You know why? I'm concerned. I fear that I don't know who you are. You could be the nicest guy in the world. You could be a moderate with strong opinions, want to bring people together. That's great. But giving money to the Democratic Party means Nancy Pelosi doing what she did last time. All these moderates that got elected under the premise of fighting for kitchen table issues then just went on to support a nonsensical impeachment that everyone knew would fail and distracted the nation while a global crisis was brewing. That's what I don't want to take part in. So I'm just out. I don't want to be involved with anybody's nonsense. But I'll tell you what. Donald Trump was right about China. Donald Trump was right about manufacturing. And Senator Tom Cotton was calling this out from the get-go. So you want to talk about who was right? It was not the Democrats. Mitch McConnell calls out impeachment. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on Tuesday blamed the Democrats' push to impeach President Trump in January for distracting the Trump administration from the threat posed by the coronavirus. I'm going to stop right here and say I agree for the most part, but I do think Trump and many people in Washington just weren't paying attention. That's the reality. Hindsight is 2020. I don't think the sole reason that we had a slow response to this was because of Trump or because of impeachment for the most part. But I do think impeachment played a serious role in slowing things down because people weren't focused on what was happening around the world. It was on the sidelines. And the media was absolutely obsessed with impeachment, and the media was downplaying the virus. I kid you not. I have stories to show you, and we will go through them. But first, let's read Quote, "It came up while we were tied down in the impeachment trial. And I think it diverted the attention of the government because everything every day was all about impeachment," McConnell said in an interview on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Trump has come under sharp criticism for the nation's slow response to the spreading pandemic, especially for the shortage of coronavirus testing kits when the virus first spread to the U.S. And that's about it. They show Mitch McConnell's point, and he's right. You know why? Nancy Pelosi and these other Democrats are absolutely obsessed with the orange man instead of the problems facing our country and the world. If you want to actually help American people, stop pretending that all of your problems are rooted in Donald Trump. Real clear politics. Pelosi will need after-action review of Trump coronavirus response as the president fiddles people are dying. It's similar to the main story, just another quote that wasn't included. What's an after-action review? Is that threat of an investigation? You're going to dig into whether Donald Trump, delayed things on purpose or why things were slow. No, I don't want to deal with this, man. You know what? The Democrats need to get their head out of the sand and pay attention to what's going on in this country. They are self-owning with this one, and they don't seem to realize because, it was the Democrats that made this problem what it is. De Blasio haunted by weeks-old tweet urging people to get out on the town despite the coronavirus. Now, I know Bill de Blasio is not a congressional Democrat, but he was running for president. So if we're going to pass the blame to anybody, we can talk about Donald Trump starting a task force in January, or we can talk about de Blasio in March, telling people to go out and live your life like normal and get out of the town. And now New York is the hardest hit city in the nation, or it's the epicenter. So while New York flounders and they blame Trump for what's going on in the U.S., the reality is you've got local governments to blame for this as well. And while Donald Trump was warning us, slow as it may have been, he was still ahead of de Blasio. And more importantly, he was still ahead of Joe Biden. Here's a tweet from January 28th. Joe Biden says, "Let's remember one thing when it comes to impeachment. Donald Trump is on trial because he's afraid to run against me. He knows I'll beat him this November." A day later, Donald Trump formed a task force to deal with the coronavirus. And a day after that, Joe Biden once again was tweeting about getting Trump out of the White House. Why wasn't Joe Biden talking about the coronavirus pandemic? Donald Trump had just formed a task force. And a day after this tweet, Donald Trump restricted travel from China. You can call it slow, but he did something at least. So let's say this. Let's say you really think Trump did a bad job. You have to at least recognize the Democrats did a worse job. Andrew Cuomo resisted locking down New York, told Bill de Blasio to get real. Bill de Blasio on March 3rd, I believe it was saying go out and party. Donald Trump had already formed a task force at that point. Not a perfect response, but they did worse. Joe Biden tweeted on February 1st, "We're in the midst of a crisis with the coronavirus." Okay, so a day after Donald Trump restricted travel. But then he just goes on to call Trump a xenophobic, hysterical, fear-mongering. Now, some people have argued that simply by calling Trump xenophobic, he wasn't actually saying Trump did anything wrong, but I disagree. All right. He's saying that when Trump calls out travel from China, if Joe Biden's going to immediately come out and say he's xenophobic, I think we know what Joe Biden is criticizing. Take a look at this. On February 1st, Biden slams Trump response to the coronavirus epidemic. "This is no time for fear-mongering." Was it fear-mongering to restrict travel from China? Dr. Fauci praised the move. Was it fear-mongering or was it the right call? I defer to the scientists. I defer to the doctors who said it was the right call. So no, Joe Biden, thank you for trying to throw a wrench into the spokes of what Trump was trying to pull off by calling it fear-mongering, but it still got done anyway. Joe Biden on March 18th, "Stop the xenophobic fear-mongering, be honest." This is in response to Donald Trump saying, "I always treated the Chinese virus very seriously and have done a very good job from the beginning, including my very early decision to close the borders from China against the wishes of almost all. Many lives were saved. The fake news narrative is disgraceful and false." Now, some people believe that Joe Biden's referring to Trump calling it the Chinese virus, and I think that's a fair assessment. But I also think it's a fair assessment that he's saying everything Trump just said was xenophobic. Joey Salads, you can see him as the top response, saying Democrats care more about the name of the virus than the people dying. So it was perceived that, Joe Biden was critical of everything. Well, I'll put it this way. I think Joe Biden was being critical of whatever Trump was saying. So if you want to, again, criticize Donald Trump, Joe Biden was dragging him down. Should he be the leader? I don't think so. Biden says a wall will not stop the virus. Banning all travel from Europe or any other part of the world will not stop it. This disease could impact every nation and any person on the planet, and we need a plan to combat it. Okay. If you don't like Trump's response, tell me you think Biden's response would have been better. If Nancy Pelosi wants to come out and blame Trump and say he did a horrible job, okay. Then you know what you have to, you know what your opportunity in November is? Vote for someone who did a bad job, Donald Trump, or someone who would do an absolutely worse job in Joe Biden. Is that what you really want? No, I think that makes no sense. Take a look at what the Republicans were actually doing. And this story got very little fanfare. GOP senator calls for travel ban to stop coronavirus spread. Bravo, good sir, Senator Tom Cotton. My friends were sending me this viral video of Tom Cotton talking about the seriousness of the pandemic in January. And Facebook was apparently removing. I don't know exactly what happened, but people were saying, share this in your messages. Facebook will take it down. Senator Tom Cotton is calling for the Trump administration to implement a targeted travel ban to stop the spread of a coronavirus from China. And look at this. They even called it a coronavirus. It was such a non-issue for the media and for most people that when someone, a Republican, came out early and said, listen, we need to shut things down, it's going to get bad, they said, what's a coronavirus? They didn't even call it the coronavirus, which is funny. In a letter to members of Trump's cabinet Tuesday, Cotton said it may be too late for China to contain the virus within its borders and called for a ban on all commercial flights between the U.S. and China. Cotton said U.S. citizens living in China should have the option to return to America, but only under appropriate elevated monitoring. This dude was well above everyone else, including Donald Trump. So we can look at the response from Republicans. Not great, but pretty good, especially Tom Cotton. What about Democrats? They pushed lies at the time that Trump had hindered our ability to fight this. February 26, the Associated Press said the Democrats were distorting the coronavirus readiness information. Now, this was back when there were a bit more candidates, but they were pushing fake news, riling Americans up into believing nonsense. Well, you can blame the media too. So my respect to the Associated Press for calling this out, but take a look at this. I love this story. I love showing it. Get a grip, America. The flu is a much bigger threat than coronavirus. For now. All right, I'll accept their for now. For now. But it's true that when Donald Trump was taking these actions, we have an op-ed from the New York Times. It's really interesting. They mentioned that many liberals were reticent to give Donald Trump and populists fuel by claiming they were correct about the coronavirus. You see, something interesting happened. Early on, Republicans and conservatives were waving warning flags about the coronavirus, including Donald Trump, even though he did end up downplaying it a bit later on. Perhaps it was because he was trying to prevent panic. I don't know. But something happened after they started, Tom Cotton comes out and says, hey, we got to do this thing. The media just it's what they do. Republicans are always wrong. Orange man is always bad. So a bunch of stories like this come out. Get a grip. The flu is much worse. How about this one from BuzzFeed on January 29th? Don't worry about the coronavirus. Worry about the flu. How horrifyingly irresponsible. They could not give Trump even one day. As Nate Silver said, this is proof. He said it in response to Trump's an operation in the Middle East when he got rid of a really bad man. I'll put it that way. But Nate Silver said that the liberals really can't give Trump one good day, can they? On the 29th, Donald Trump formed the task force. And this is what BuzzFeed had to say. It was updated on the 29th. Not to worry about it. Yeah, because Trump is always wrong, right? And there you go. If the media had just been honest from the get-go, maybe this wouldn't have happened. If the Democrats weren't impeaching the president, maybe we would have been more prepared. And that's why I don't want to go anywhere near the Democrats, because I see what they're going to do with their power. Pelosi's already calling for another review. CNN analyst ripped for saying Trump's coronavirus task force is too white. January 31st. Are you kidding me? Yeah, well, they were trying to impeach him. Everything about what he did was wrong. Everything. And you know what? To this day, it still is. I do not trust any of these people. They are a chaotic, destructive force that care not for any structure. They don't care for the safety of people. I made this a little bit hyperbolic. I think they probably care a little. They probably care about the immediate safety of people. I think that's fair to say. And I think it's important we do come together to a certain degree, but we've got to call it out where it needs to be called out. All they do is write stories that Trump is wrong. They say that his coronavirus task force is too white. They say to ignore it because it's not a problem. And then months later, they say Donald Trump didn't do enough. Well, maybe he was watching your news program. Here's what happened. As I mentioned early on, liberals didn't want to give populists and the conservatives credit or fuel. So they immediately inverted the narrative saying, no, it's not a big deal. Oh, the flu is worse. And then they couldn't deny it. It started getting bad. And Trump started buying their narrative. All of a sudden, Trump started saying similar things, like it's just like the flu. Yeah, the media was pumping this stuff out. Even Fox News started picking it up. And it's weird how this change shifted from Tom Cotton's early warning to an inversion from both sides. But the fact remains, Trump still did more. But as soon as Trump came out and said, we've got it under control, everything's going to be fine, the media flipped. And that's how this plays out. All they do is they report something. Actually, here's a really good example. I covered this on my second channel earlier this morning. Andrew Cuomo on March 6th said that masks were being stolen, and like a lot, and he instructed the police to investigate who was selling masks to figure out where they were going. Donald Trump yesterday said, who knows what's happening, maybe something nefarious, maybe worse than hoarding, implying potential theft. The media runs Cuomo's story uncritically. Trump then sees it and says, maybe people are stealing. And then immediately they come out and they call Trump a conspiracy theorist who's pushing lies and besmirching the good name of nurses when he never even brought it up. That's the game the media plays. He comes out and says, we're going to take care of the coronavirus. So they say it's no big deal. Then Trump says it's no big deal. Then they say Trump's lying and wrong and he's going to get everyone killed. Then Trump comes out and they say, you're too late. Well, you know what, man? Trump is right to call him the fake news, but I think it's still fair to say he does buy into what they say decently often. Maybe he shouldn't. Maybe we should all ignore them a bit more. Even to this day, I would like to point out the media and these pundits and these leftists and these Democrats just want to watch it all burn. I can conclude nothing else of many of these people. Not all of them. Not all of them. It's a small few group of lunatics that need to be called out. I was actually I thought it was a great thing when my pillow guy Mike Lindell switched up his factory to start producing PPE, personal protective equipment, masks for frontline medical workers. Awesome. Same as many other companies. My understanding is that New Balance, I think, is doing the same thing. My respect and my admiration to all of these companies that are joining the effort to help fight this virus. One of which is Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy. And he's got an amazing story. It's a redemption story. He used to be an addict and he turned his life around. He found God and now he's running a successful company. His pillows are pretty good. I got to say, I like his pillows. Okay. I got one. It's a good pillow, admittedly. I'm not a super religious person. He can do his thing. This is America, by all means. And Donald Trump invited him up to the podium to speak and the media just tore him to shreds. Why? This guy just joined the effort to help save lives. If he wants to go up and say a prayer and praise Trump, that's fine. I don't care. He's helping. Like, what is wrong with these people, man? You know what? This to me says that there are many pundits who really just don't care about anyone or anything. They are sociopaths. There are politicians who feel the same way. I don't care who Trump wants to bring up. Of course, he wants to praise a guy who likes him. Mike Lindell is a conservative Christian guy. He runs ads on Fox News all the time. I don't care. That's a normal part of life. There are a lot of people who like the guy because he makes good pillows. Whatever. I don't know or care for the most part about his opinions. All I know is that he's using his resources to help us. My respect. You want to believe in God and go to church? Yeah, go for it. I got no beef. That's awesome. In fact, I support your right to do so, protected under the First Amendment. But the media bashes. Look at this. Mainstream media mocks White House appearance of my pillow guy, Mike Lindell, despite contribution to virus fight. That makes me want to barf. Here's this guy saying that he's going to put himself in this fight to do the right thing. And this is the respect he gets. Why? Because he's on the right. How do you expect anyone to do the right thing? To stand up and join you in agreement when this is what you do? How can you expect Trump and other Republicans to think the media is telling the truth when this is what they do? I've said it over and over again. If someone has done something wrong in the past, I will give them an opportunity to redeem themselves because we want them to do the right thing. If you tell someone, no matter what you do, we will never accept you, then why would they bother trying to be accepted? Meaning, why would they bother doing the right thing? They'll turn around and go to the dark side. Nah. If there's someone who I think has got a bad opinion or is a bad person and then does something good, I will praise the good and say, please do more of this. That includes Nancy Pelosi, Ocasio-Cortez, Warren, anybody else. And I've given them credit, especially right now. I'll give a shout out to Joe Scarborough over on MSNBC. Although he's not perfect, he has given Trump a few pieces of praise over taking the right action. And that's the right attitude. Criticize the president all day and night with my blessing. But if he does something good, point out why it was good. And then we can move on. But if Mike Lindell is going to turn his factories into mass production and even he gets slammed and smeared, Why would anyone bother listening to anything these people have to say? They won't. They'll disregard it. They'll think it's a hoax, and they'll say no matter what we do, they call us wrong. When Trump agrees, it's wrong. When he disagrees, it's wrong. When the people we like start making medical equipment for them, they mock and belittle them. I don't like the direction this stuff goes. So let me wrap this up. Why I think it was a glorious self-own. Because Trump has done more. He's done more, even if it wasn't enough, than Joe Biden or the Democrats did. Because never forget, while Donald Trump did a little bit, travel restriction and the task force, and the task force was working on this. Fauci seems to be a good dude. People like him. They were just screeching impeachment, and Biden was tweeting about climate change. So yeah, maybe, if you live in a glass house, you shouldn't throw stones, Pelosi. And now they want to do another investigation. You know what? I'm so over this. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. youtube.com/TimCastNews. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.